Hey, it's Cigar Craig. Today I've got a special guest today, Shaun Wilkinson from Rebellion Cigars. I'm going to bring him right in. We're going to talk about Rebellion Cigars.
Hi,
There
how
he
you
is.
doing?
Hi, Shaun. Good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, we're great. Thank you very much.
Now, this is the first time we're meeting,
Yeah.
and you reached out to me a few weeks ago because I had kind of tongue in cheek made a joke that I was running low on new cigars to smoke and only had probably a few months supply. I don't know if you picked up on the few months supply part, but you very kindly offered to send me a selection of your cigars, and I got them last week and started smoking a few of them, and I'm quite enjoying them. So, Rebellion Cigars, um, you're in the UK,
That's
correct?
correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and you sound like you're maybe from there,
I am.
judging by the accent. Um, how did you end up starting a cigar brand? Let me, while you're talking about that, I'm going to light up this
Yeah, 'cause
Rebellion Cigars Ring
it's
of Fire.
it's quite a long story. So, I mean, I've never smoked cigarettes. I've only ever smoked cigars, and I started smoking cigars when I was about 19. So, in the UK at the time, you had this cigar called a Castella, and it was the advertising they did for this was it was the cigar that was as big as a pint. So if you got a pint pot like this and you put the cigar next to it, it was the same size. So
Oh, thanks.
I was the odd one out. I was the guy in the working men's clubs and bars smoking these things. Everybody else was smoking roll-ups and cigarettes, and I looked a bit of an idiot. But I didn't care. I just enjoyed doing it. And so that was my first introduction into cigars. And then a mate of mine flew out to the Dominican Republic, and he brought me back some Santa Damiana Robustos
Very
in a
nice.
yellow tube.
I remember
Yeah.
those.
So, and this thing, I didn't know how to smoke it because this thing's got a round bit on the top. So I managed to find my local tobacconist, and I said, look, I'm used to smoking these Castella cigars. How do I smoke these things? So he spent an hour with me teaching me how to cut them, how to light them, how to smoke them, how to enjoy them. And I kind of never looked back from there, really. So that was kind of my introduction into what I would call long filler cigars. And of course, I smoked Cubans, and a mate of mine went to Cuba and brought me some Cubans back. That's when I had my first fake Cohiba. It curled up. It was that bad.
Nice.
It's all about the learning. So, but it's very expensive. So the UK is a very expensive place to smoke cigars. The duties and the taxes are pretty good, and also it's a pretty close shop. So I thought, right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If I start my own cigar business in the UK, I can buy cigars wholesale and smoke more cigars for less money. Right, dead simple.
Brilliant.
Great idea. Only, unfortunately, in those days, the only cigar supplier in the UK was a company called Hunters and Franco, who had the monopoly on Cuban cigars. Unless you had a shop, you couldn't do an online business. So the whole thing kind of folded. But the idea never left me. So my current job, which I've been doing for 17 years, is a big corporate job, and I'm getting to the age now where the corporate world doesn't suit me anymore. And then there was a drunken night in a taxi about, I don't know, 4 years ago, and I thought, I'm gonna do this. I want to do it. So I started researching the whole how do I get a partner in a factory? How do I get blends? What's everybody else doing? Around about 2019. My wife and I were very lucky as well in that we managed to purchase a house in Orlando, which is going to be our winter home. And of course, I visited the Corona Cigar Lounge in Orlando, and it's like, wow, this is just like nothing we've got back in the UK, and how cheap are these cigars compared to the UK? So that really got me going. So I had a buying trip planned for April 2020 to some factories in Nicaragua that were willing to talk to me. Of course, COVID hit and all that kind of fell apart. So we had to go to plan B pretty quickly. We carried on talking to various factories, and they very kindly did some blends based on phone calls like this and Zoom calls. We blended some cigars. They sent them over. I spent the whole summer tasting about, I don't know, 20, 30 different blends from different factories. And my first cigar was the Sweet Child of Mine. That's the one I really kind of settled on. Now, that's become a bit of a limited edition one, but I liked it. I wanted the dark Maduro wrapper, so it's got a Mexican San Andres wrapper. It's got some chocolate notes, and it's a really good smooth cigar. We've just literally had that reworked, actually, and literally today I received the first sample of the new Sweet Child of Mine Gordo. So this is still at sample stage, but this will be released into tobacco in September. So that was kind of how we got into it, and we've fallen on our feet a little bit because we've managed to partner with a factory in Honduras, a guy called Pedro, whose knowledge and enthusiasm is unbounded. He knows his stuff, he knows his tobacco, he knows his blending, and he's basically come up with some great blends for us. The cigar you're smoking there is my personal favorite at the moment. It used to be the Ace of Spades, but this one just pips it for me. I just think it's got a little bit more flavor, a little bit more taste, certainly more to my palate. And so we've been selling them in the UK for getting on for 2.5 years now, and in Europe. So the brand is fairly well established in the UK, but we couldn't launch in the US because we couldn't fly over, so we couldn't get a tobacco license, we couldn't get a bank account. So we managed to get all those things sorted in October last year. We came to TPE, we launched there, and PCA is kind of our second tranche. And one of the other reasons I contacted you actually was because you'd written a piece on Fratello cigars.
Okay.
And he was one of the guys I'd really sort of done a lot of research into because his story is very similar. So he was in a big corporate job, smoked cigars, and did both side by side, and then made the transition into a very successful cigar company, and that's kind of what we're emulating to do. So yeah, that's how we've ended up being the British or the English cigar company trying to break into America rather than the other way around.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a little bit different. You don't get that all the time. I mean, I know
we don't know of anybody else doing it this way.
Right.
So we're really excited by the whole thing, and really looking forward to getting to PCA in a week and a bit, and meeting some people.
I know I'm sure you're familiar with Mitchell Orchant.
I am.
I know he tried to sell his Inca brand cigars in the U.S.
Yep.
Don't know that it got a whole lot of traction, but just one line of Peruvian Puro. But yeah, otherwise, I don't know. Nobody does that, right?
No, and I look. I may be wrong. We're pumping an awful lot of time and money into this, so we're going to make this work. But if you look at the market, the cigar market's a crowded market. There's an awful lot of stuff out there, and you've got to try and stand out with something a bit different. So the first thing when we set this business up was we've obviously got to have a great factory that's making great cigars, because if the product is no good, you're sunk.
Absolutely.
And I think we've got a great cigar and a great product, great factory, great partnership there. The second thing you got to have is something a bit different than the marketing. So that's why we chose the color pink. I mean, there's lots of other cigar companies use a skull, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But we use the color pink because if you put a pink box in most cigar shops, it's going to stand out.
Sure.
The pink band is going to stand out. So it might just pique people's interest a little bit and say, well, do you know what? That's a bit different. Let's give it a go. They then like it and then they start to smoke them.
Definitely catches the eye for sure.
Yeah.
Now, first question I was going to ask was what factory, and you said it was a factory in Honduras, right? That's making these.
Yeah. So it's a factory called 7 Cigars.
Okay.
Pedro is in his mid-30s. He's been doing this now for about 7 or 8 years, so he has his own brand as well.
Cool.
And he does sort of third-party manufacturing. But the proof of this was in meeting him. We got some cigars made elsewhere, and we met him in October last year, and he flew specially from Honduras to Orlando to meet us. And I gave him one of my blends, and I said, smoke that. Be honest. Tell me what you think. And it was an Ace of Spades actually, and he was smoking it, and he told me the tobacco that was in that cigar, and and it blew me away because that's not something I can ever do.
That's impressive when people do that.
Yeah. For a guy his age as well, maybe you might expect that with a guy who's been, smoking cigars for 40, 50 years, but it just blew me away. So,
right. Now, another thing that caught my eye from a UK-based company, the names of the cigars are largely American-centric, I guess. I mean, you have a country range, which country music's pretty typically American, and then the Rockstar range, which is largely American bands. You got an Australian one thrown in there, but you don't have any English representation there. So, talk about that.
So again, when I came up with the concept, it was very much again, how do you do something different? And nobody was doing what we've done. So the first range was the Rockstar range, and very, very simply, they're named after my favorite rock songs. There's no particular science in this in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the Sweet Child of Mine, which was the first blend, was very much a case of, it's my favorite song. I love the cigar riff. I love Slash, and I love the whole thing. I rock out to it, every week. And also because it took so long to get this to market, it was like giving birth almost to a child. So So that was that, and then the others that are just songs I love. And then we wanted to do a second range, a second sub brand, if you like. So this is my wife's idea to do the country stuff, because she's big into her country music. So that's why, and these are her favorite country songs. So that's why they've got the names they've got. So there's no science behind it. It's just yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really weird because particularly in the UK, I get people sending me Instagrams and videos all the time of them listening to Voodoo Child or Sweet Child of Mine or Ace of Spades smoking the cigar. So you get that connotation as well.
So I wanted to ask, and you didn't send me a sample, and so I didn't get a chance to decide on my own. But is the Voodoo Child the Hendrix version or the Stevie Ray Vaughan version?
It's the Hendrix version.
Very good.
It's dark and heavy, and a bit spicy.
I figured if I had a chance to sample it on my own, I might have been able to figure it out. But.
Yeah. when I come over to PCA, I'll make sure I'll send you some, because I know we had problems getting you the delivery, but we'll sort that out for you.
That was awesome. That was just some of my readers know, some may not. I started out in the 80s managing a record store.
Oh, okay.
So I sold the crap out of Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. I sold the crap out of Motorhead and Hendrix and AC/DC and all that stuff. And I mean, I couldn't tell you how many Guns N' Roses albums went through my hands.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure my iPhone, if an iPhone could wear out from playing it, it would. But
right? Yeah. So that's
what you like, and that's what you stick to for me. Yeah.
And so I mean, I was with some of the lists of songs there. I was expecting to come across something classic, British metal. Maybe a Paranoid or something, Black Sabbath.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that may be the next edition. Yeah, we're working on another limited edition ready for next year, so that's actually not a bad idea. Yeah. Because who doesn't like Aussie?
Be very careful doing a short fat perfecto and calling it a war pig. That might step on some toes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Have the lawyers check that one out first.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting. I did yeah, I'm not a big country fan, so but I smoked that Redneck Woman this morning, and it was
Yeah,
fantastic.
good.
That was a very special tasting cigar.
Thank
That
you.
had some fascinating flavors. I was very impressed with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's my morning cigar,
Was
and
it?
I'm not normally a Connecticut sort of person, so I don't smoke too many of the Paradise Cities, but I
Sure.
much prefer the country range when it comes to the early morning. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm not either. There's a handful I like, and oddly, most of them are Honduras
Right.
based.
Okay.
But there's a couple Dominicans here and there. There's nothing wrong with a Diamond Crown, but
No.
yeah, most of the Connecticut's I really dig are from Honduras. So
Okay.
that scans, and I
Good.
didn't know that before we just started chatting. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. The Maduro wrapper on this Ring of Fire, Maduro is kind of a general term. Is that a Honduran leaf, or is that
It's the Honduran leaf. Yes.
okay?
Yeah. So the blend's actually a bit of a mix of Honduran and Nicaraguan tobacco, but the wrapper's Honduran.
Yeah, because on most of them you say Habano or Connecticut, and then San Andres, and then you say Maduro, which doesn't really specify, right? The Ace of Spades also Maduro. Is that also the same wrapper, or is that
Same wrapper? But we got to keep some secrets.
okay? Gotcha. Sure. Sure. I gotcha. I see things that I see inconsistencies sometimes, and feel the need to question them. But
no, you're absolutely right. But that goes back to getting the right partner factory. So making sure the quality controls there and all that sort of stuff, because it takes a long time to make a good impression and a very short time to make a bad one. So
sure.
If you smoke a load of cigars and then you come across a couple that aren't good, there's plenty of other choice out there. So you've got to make sure you get it right all day, every day.
Absolutely.
So that was really important with our choice of partner as well.
Right. Now you're distributing in the UK and in Europe. Do you have distribution in the US yet, or
no?
is that what you're working on at the TPE and at the PCA coming up?
Exactly right. So at TPE, we managed to get about 10 customers on board, which was great. Okay. And they were bought and they're continuing to buy. So that's also good because, again, you get a bit of interest to start with, but can you sustain that? So that's really good. We already have about 12 meetings already booked for PCA with lounges, and we know that we're a new young brand, and we've got to fight for our position on the shelf or on the website. So we've got to we've got to do the right deals, and that's something. See, that's something I think in America is a bit different to the UK. In the UK, the price is the price, and that's it. Right. I think the American market's far more open to doing deals, and we love doing deals. So
So you mentioned price. I don't think I saw what the price range is on these. What's the MSRP looking like? Robusto, Toro, Gordo.
So $10, $11, and $12.
No, perfect, beautiful, perfect.
So the price point was always to try and get a $10 Robusto cigar.
That's right there.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And you always try, again, you do your market research, you see what else is out there. We think we use very good tobacco. Right now we want to take less margin because we've got to build this brand. So the next 2 to 3 years is about building the brand, getting people to appreciate the cigars, and then it might be an $11 cigar. But right now it's 10, and we make sure we do deals so the retailers can make some decent margin on that as well.
Sure. That's got to be difficult in the UK though, because that's got to be a $25, $30, $35 cigars in the UK, right?
Well, yeah. So if you go through the middlemen in the UK, your Robusto will end up being a 17, 18 pound cigar. Okay. So we're kind of lucky that it's us shipping our own cigars in.
Yes.
and therefore we're cutting those margins out. So we get them to the end user in the UK at about £13.
Okay.
So it's a reasonable.
That's going to be very competitive in the UK, I imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it is when you look at and I'm not comparing us to a Cohiba in any way, shape, or form. But a Cohiba Robusto now is between £70 and £80.
Yeah, that's nuts. That's insane.
If you want a Behiki 54, you can start with a 400.
Right. That's insanity. Absolute insanity.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
There won't be any in my humidor, that's for sure.
No. Somebody gave me one, and a Cohiba, a Behiki 54, and I smoked on my birthday, and I sat there for an hour, and it was a very enjoyable hour, and I thought, you know what? It's all right.
Yeah.
I've smoked many New World cigars that I would put ahead of it. So
right. So now I'm sure New World cigars are doing rather well in the UK now.
Yeah.
Just for that very reason, I imagine.
Yeah. Oh, there's massive
cigars are so stupidly expensive.
Yeah. Well, the Cubans are almost putting themselves in that luxury market now.
For sure.
So even if they weren't before, they certainly are now. So, and most of our retail customers in the UK are what I call like me. I'm a bloke. I go out to work, come home, I want to have a cigar, and I want to smoke a cigar most days. So therefore, it has to be reasonably priced for me to afford to do that. And that's what we're trying to provide. Not
much different than here, but the scale is a little different, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the US is the biggest cigar market in the world. So, it's important to make a splash there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Now let's real quick. I'm going to go through the country range. You have the 5 o'clock somewhere with the Habano wrapper.
Yeah.
The Ring of Fire, which I'm smoking, is very good with the Honduras Maduro wrapper.
Yeah.
And the Redneck Woman with the Connecticut wrapper. Right?
Yes.
Then we have the Rockstar range, and you've got the You Shook Me All Night Long with the Habano.
Yeah.
Sweet Child of Mine with the San Andres.
Yeah.
The Ace of Spades is the Maduro.
Yeah.
Again, the Honduras Maduro. You got a Paradise City with the Connecticut and the Voodoo Child with the San Andres. So that's you got eight cigars there.
Yes.
That's a pretty good lineup.
It's a good start.
Yeah. Good start. and 3 sizes.
Yeah.
Are they all? They're not all available in 3 sizes, though, are they? Or are they? Do you have them all in Robusto, Toro, and Gordo?
Okay, so if you take Sweet Child and Voodoo out of the equation for the moment, because they're limited edition, so all the others at the moment, as we sit here now, are Robusto and Toro, and then at PCA we're launching the Gordo. Okay, so they're at the moment sat with Shepherd Logistics in Vegas. Ready to go when we get there. We will be launching the Sweet Child in Robusto, Toro, and Gordo at Inter back in September. And the Voodoo is only what I call a slightly short Robusto, so a bit of a shorter cigar.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Just a side, something popped into my head several years ago. I was told that like a 4x60 does very well in the UK. Is that anything you'd look at, or is that still trending that way? How do the 60s do in the UK?
So the bigger cigars don't do as well, and there's a very good reason for that, because we haven't got the weather. Gotcha. So our most popular cigars are Robustos. Followed by Toros. We sell a few Gordos and bigger, but not very many. So right now, I'm sitting in what I call my man cave, which is the room I built so I can smoke cigars all year round, extraction fan on the heater and all that sort of stuff. Most people aren't that lucky. So in the summer, they can get outside and smoke a bigger cigar, but in the winter, it's a 40-minute smoke at tops, because it's too damn cold.
No, I get you. Neat. All right. Well, that's good stuff. So you got the PCA coming up in a week or so.
Yeah.
That's going to be exciting. Is that your first time at the PCA?
But first PCA, yeah. So we can't wait. So
Wow.
we learned a lot of TPE. So
Very different shows.
Yeah.
Very different clientele. You should do much better at the PCA, I would think.
That's what everybody told us. So we've got high hopes. As I say, just from the marketing we've done beforehand and the appointments we've got, people obviously want to talk, and more the merrier. But we've already got some great appointments set up, so we've got high expectations.
Very good. Where are you located on the show floor? Are you near? Do you know who your neighbors are?
No, it's booth 118-221 or something. But, yeah,
I haven't looked at a map.
No.
I decided to skip it this year. It's just too much long. But maybe I'll get there next year.
Well, it's earlier next year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in March next year, which will be interesting to see how that goes. It's also in the convention center as opposed to the stands.
Yeah,
which is also interesting. Yeah, I was there last year. I'd taken a few year hiatus, but I've been to a bunch of them over the years.
Yeah.
It's
so how do you see it changing over the years? How's it changed since you first started going?
Well, they've trimmed out all the first few years I went. There was a lot of the hookah and the vape and pipes and more of that. Now it's almost all premium cigars. Very, very little of anything else. That's a big change. I mean, that's last year it was a little smaller, obviously because of some of the people not being there and the post-pandemic. I mean, it had gotten way too large. When I was there in 17 or 18, there was no way you could. I mean, you'd get lost trying to go from one place to the other. You'd be there for 3 days, and you still didn't figure out the routes. You'd still get lost on the show floor and couldn't find out, where you were going. So it's I think having it smaller is a little better. They don't need to have huge booths. You don't need to have all the showgirls and all that stuff. But you should definitely have more of the targeted audience that you're looking for at that show than was at the TPE.
Yeah, good. We noticed that at TPE. I mean, I would say half of it, maybe a third of it was cigars and 2/3 was vapes and
right. Yeah, that's probably generous, but yeah. And I think a lot of the buyers there are not premium cigar buyers.
Sure. Good. Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish you the best there. Of course, the TPE is a lot easier to go into as a vendor. It's a lower cost of entry. It's a whole lot easier for you, but you don't get I don't think you get the return on investment as much as you will with the PCA.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Good.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I'd say we're really looking forward to it, and it'll be warmer because when we went in February, geez, it was cold.
Yeah. I remember people saying it was very cold in Vegas at the TPE.
Unexpected. Well, we had a customer who driven over from California, so he's driven across the desert, and he said he went through a blizzard. He said he's never seen anything like it ever.
Crazy.
Well,
it probably won't get past like 118 when you're there, so it'll be fine.
Okay. I just need t-shirts and shorts then.
Yes. So plenty of them.
Yeah. Good.
Change into when you soak through the ones you have.
Absolutely.
That's a good place.
Good.
Anyway, well, very, very good. I thank you very much for carving out some time to talk to me. Thank you for sending me a bunch of your cigars. I'm enjoying them. I'll be writing several articles about them as I get through the pile. And once again, it was a bit of a challenge working out the time difference, but I appreciate taking the time.
First of all, thank you for sticking with it because we had that problem with the first delivery. So thank you for your patience, but we got there.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely. Thank you.
yeah, the time difference is not a problem for me. Just really appreciate your time, and thank you very much.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that'll do it. Hang in with me a few minutes, and I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
And we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, Craig.